The massive doors of the Federation Council chamber opened with a sound like thunder. Jake Morrison walked through them with steady steps, his black uniform marking him as a member of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. Behind him came Lisa Carter, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, and her blue eyes scanning the enormous room filled with alien representatives. 300 different species sat in the curved rows of seats that rose up like a giant bowl around the central speaking platform. Some looked almost human, with 2 arms and 2 legs. Others were so strange that Jake had trouble figuring out which way they were facing. The air smelled of ozone and chemicals. He could not name. Jake had been preparing for this moment for 5 years. Earth wanted to join the Galactic Federation, but the humans knew it would not be easy. Every species in the Federation had something special to offer. The Korthan were the greatest warriors in known space. The Zephyrians had minds that could solve mathematical problems in seconds. The Vegan Empire controlled trade routes across half the galaxy. What did humans have? They were young, weak, and stuck on one small planet at the edge of nowhere. Ambassador Crixtel of the Zephyrian Republic stood up from his seat. His gray skin looked like stone, and his forearms moved in patterns that Jake had learned meant contempt. When Crixtel spoke, his voice came through a translator device that made him sound like he was talking underwater. So the humans have come to ask for membership again, Crixtel said. How many times must we explain that your species brings nothing of value to our alliance? Jake walked to the center of the speaking platform. He had given this speech in his head 1,000 times, but standing here with hundreds of alien eyes watching him made his mouth feel dry. Honored delegates, humanity requests full membership in the Galactic Federation. We offer our knowledge, our resources, and our commitment to peace. A sound like buzzing filled the chamber. Jake realized it was laughter from species that communicated through vibrations. General Veximer of the Korthan Military Command leaned forward in his seat. The Korthan looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard, with scales that changed color based on his mood. Right now they were dark red, which Jake knew meant anger or amusement. Knowledge? General Veximer's voice boomed across the chamber, without any translator. Your species has not even learned to travel faster than light on your own. Resources? Your planet is small, and your population tiny. And peace? The general's scales shifted to bright orange. Your history shows nothing but war after war among your own kind. Lisa stepped forward. She had been quiet during the journey to the Federation station, but Jake knew she was thinking. Lisa had spent 10 years studying alien psychology before joining the diplomatic corps. Her personnel files showed degrees from 3 universities, but there were parts of her background that were marked classified even from Jake. General Veximer, Lisa said, her voice calm and clear. You speak of our history of war as if it were a weakness. But consider this. We learned to control that tendency. We learned to work together. We learned restraint. The chamber grew quieter. Some of the delegates leaned forward to hear better. Lisa continued. Every species here achieved peace through different means. The Zephyrians did it through logic. The Vegans did it through trade. The Andorians did it through telepathic connection. Humans achieved peace through something else entirely. We achieved it through choosing not to be what we could be. Jake watched the faces around them. Some delegates looked confused. Others seemed interested for the first time since the humans had entered the chamber. What exactly are you saying, human? Asked Ambassador Sylvan of the Andromedan Collective. Her voice came from a translation device because Andromedans communicated through color changes in their skin. Jake looked at Lisa and back at the assembled delegates. We are saying that humanity brings something unique to the Federation. We bring the knowledge of what happens when a species learns to control its own nature. We bring the wisdom that comes from choosing to be less than you could be. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates were talking, buzzing, clicking, and making sounds that the translators could not convert into words. Ambassador Crickstell raised all four of his arms for silence. Less than you could be? Crickstell's voice carried clearly through the noise. You speak in riddles, human. Your species shows no great strength to control. Your weapons are primitive chemical explosives and fusion. Reactions. Your ships barely reach your own moon without massive effort. What power could you possibly be restraining? Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. This was the moment he had been dreading. He looked up at the hundreds of faces watching him and spoke words that his training had made him memorize. Honored delegates, we ask you to consider humanity's application carefully. We have been honest about what we offer and what we seek. But we must also be honest about something else. Jake paused and met the eyes of as many delegates as he could. Please don't make us furious. The silence that followed was complete. Then, slowly, the laughter began. It started with the Zephyrians and spread to the Corthans. Soon the entire chamber was filled with the sounds of 300 species expressing amusement in 300 different ways. General Veximer stood up, his scales now bright yellow with mirth. Furious? The humans threaten us with their anger. He turned to address the other delegates. Perhaps they will throw rocks at us, or maybe they will write angry letters. More laughter filled the chamber. Ambassador Crickstell wiped moisture from his eyes with one of his 4 hands. Thank you, humans. We have not been so entertained in decades. Your application is rejected, as it has been rejected each time you have made it. Perhaps when your species grows up, you may apply again. Jake felt Lisa's hand touch his arm gently. When he looked at her, her expression was sad, but not surprised. She stepped forward one more time. Honored delegates, she said, waiting until the laughter died down. We understand your decision. We will return to Earth and inform our leaders. But please remember what we have told you today. Please remember that we asked you, with all respect and sincerity, not to make us furious. The laughter started again as Jake and Lisa turned and walked toward the great doors. Behind them, Jake could hear delegates already discussing how to divide Earth's solar system among themselves. The humans had no allies, no powerful weapons, and no way to stop them. As the doors closed behind them, Jake heard General Veximer's voice boom out over the noise. What could one primitive world possibly do against the combined might of the Vorn? Federation? Jake and Lisa walked down the long corridor toward their small ship in silence. Finally, Lisa spoke. Jake, when we get back to Earth, we need to contact Director Murphy immediately. Why? Jake asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Lisa stopped walking and turned to face him. Her blue eyes were hard as ice. Because they just made the choice for us. After 50 years of warnings, they made the choice. She resumed walking toward their ship. They're going to find out what happens when you make humans furious. 3 months had passed since the Federation rejected humanity's application. Fleet Admiral Sarunix of the Sarn Hegemony stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator, watching Earth grow larger on his main screen. Behind him, 200 warships moved in perfect formation through the darkness of space. The Sarn were one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Their ships carried plasma weapons that could melt through any known armor. Their shields could stop nuclear weapons like they were thrown stones. Admiral Sarunix had conquered 12 star systems in his career, and each victory had been swift and complete. Earth would be no different. Admiral, his communications officer called out, "We are receiving a transmission from the human homeworld." "Put it on screen," Sarunix ordered. He expected to see human leaders begging for mercy or offering surrender. Instead, a single human male appeared on the screen. The man looked ordinary, with brown hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple black suit with no military decorations. "I am Director Alex Murphy of the Human Contingency Department," the man said. "Fleet Admiral Sir Unix, you are approaching Earth with hostile intent. This is our final warning to you and to all members of the Galactic Federation." Sir Unix laughed. The Human Contingency Department sounded like something children would make up while playing war games. "Human, I command 200 ships armed with weapons your species cannot imagine. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Director Murphy's expression did not change. "Admiral, we have asked repeatedly that you not make us furious. You have chosen to ignore our warnings. Therefore, we are issuing a final alert to all Federation species." The human paused and looked directly into the camera. "Please evacuate all civilian populations from Sarn space immediately. You have 72 hours. The transmission ended." Sir Unix stared at the empty screen for several seconds, then burst into laughter so loud that his bridge crew turned to. "Look at him. Did you hear that? The humans are warning us to evacuate our own space." He wiped tears from his eyes. "Broadcast that message to the entire Federation. Let everyone see how desperate these creatures have become." Lieutenant Rexter, the Admiral's tactical officer, looked uncomfortable. Rexter was young for a Sarn, with bright green scales that showed his nervousness. "Admiral, should we not investigate this Human Contingency Department? Our intelligence reports on human military capabilities are surprisingly incomplete." "Incomplete how?" Sir Unix asked, still chuckling. "Well, sir, we know they have chemical rockets for space travel and nuclear weapons for warfare. But there are gaps in their technological development that our analysts cannot explain, and many of their diplomatic personnel have military backgrounds that appear to be classified at levels we cannot access." Sir Unix waved a clawed hand dismissively. "What could they possibly be hiding? They cannot even travel between stars without taking months to reach the nearest system. Their strongest weapons would barely scratch our shields." But Rexter had spent weeks studying human history in preparation for this mission. What he had found troubled him. "Sir, human warfare throughout their history shows patterns that do not match their current apparent capabilities. There are references to conflicts and weapons programs that seem to have been deliberately erased from public records." "Lieutenant, you worry too much," Sir Unix said. "Observe." He activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, begin bombardment of human outer colonies. Show them what real power looks like." The Sarn fleet opened fire on 3 human settlements on the edge of Earth's solar system. The colonies had no military defenses that Sarn sensors could detect. Plasma beams cut through the thin atmosphere of the mining stations and tore apart the civilian structures below. Rexter monitored the casualty reports as they came in. "Admiral, preliminary estimates show 17,000 human civilians killed in the first wave." "Good," Sir Unix said. "Now they understand we are serious. Open communications to Earth again." But before he could contact the human homeworld, another transmission came from Director Murphy. This time, the human's face appeared on screens throughout the Sarn fleet simultaneously, somehow overriding their communication security. "Admiral Sir Unix," Murphy said, his voice still calm despite the death of 17,000 of his people. "You have chosen to attack human civilians. This action cannot be undone. I am now authorizing the disabling of Furious Protocol restraints for all human personnel." Sir Unix frowned. "What is Furious Protocol?" Murphy looked directly at him through the screen. "Admiral, for 50 years, every human who has made contact with alien species has undergone training in emotional suppression techniques. We have technology designed to prevent our people from accessing certain natural capabilities. We have built our entire spacefaring civilization around the principle of restraint. What are you talking about? Sir Unix demanded. We are talking about what happens when you make humans furious, Murphy replied. You were warned. Your species chose to ignore that warning. Now you will see why we asked you not to make us angry. The transmission ended, but immediately Rexter's sensor board began flashing with alarms. Admiral, I am detecting massive energy fluctuations from the human ships in this system. What kind of fluctuations? Rexter's scales were now pale with fear. Sir, the energy signatures are off our charts. The human vessels that were showing basic fusion reactor readings are now displaying power levels that match stellar phenomena. On the main screen, the small human fleet that had been fleeing from the Sarn advance suddenly stopped. The ships, which looked primitive compared to Sarn technology, began to glow with an inner light that made the stars around them seem dim. Admiral, Rexter whispered, I am reading quantum resonance patterns consistent with controlled stellar fusion, but that should be impossible. Those readings would require the power output of an entire star. Admiral Sir Unix watched as the human ships began to move again. But they were not moving like ships anymore. They were moving like they had decided that the normal rules of space travel did not apply to them. One moment they were light minutes away. The next they were surrounding his fleet dot. His communications officer looked up from her station with confusion on her face. Admiral, we are receiving a message from the lead human vessel. But, sir, the signal is not coming through our communication systems. It is somehow being transmitted directly into our brains. The voice that filled the bridge belonged to a human, but it carried harmonics that seemed to make the metal walls of the ship vibrate in response. Admiral Sir Unix, this is Captain Ben Hayes of the human vessel Defiance. You killed 17,000 of our people. You were warned what would happen if you made us furious. Sir Unix tried to give orders to his fleet, but found that his weapons would not respond. His tactical displays showed that all of his ships were operational, but somehow none of them could target the human vessels. Captain Hayes' voice continued, still speaking directly into their minds. Admiral, your species will now learn why humans have spent 50 years asking the galaxy not to make us angry. You will witness what happens when we stop being restrained. Rexter looked at his sensor readings and saw something that made his blood run cold. Admiral, I am detecting spatial distortions around the human ships. They appear to be manipulating the fundamental structure of space-time itself. On the main screen, one of the human ships simply vanished. A moment later, it reappeared next. To the Sarn homeworld, 37 light-years away, somehow carrying real-time visual transmission back to the fleet. That is impossible, Sir Unix breathed. No species has technology that advanced. Captain Hayes' voice reached them one final time. Admiral, we are not using technology. We are using what you made us become when you decided to make us furious. Watch your homeworld carefully. This is what happens when humans stop pretending to be weak. The transmission showed the Sarn homeworld, with its billions of inhabitants, going about their daily lives, unaware that their planet was about to demonstrate to the galaxy why humans had begged everyone not to make them angry. Director Alex Murphy sat 3 miles beneath the city of Geneva in a room that did not officially exist. The walls were lined with computers that hummed with quiet power, each one running calculations that would have taken the Federation's best machines years to complete. Screens showed data streams from every human settlement across the solar system, monitoring the mental state of 8 billion people. Dr. Kate Williams stood at the main control panel, her hands moving across holographic displays that tracked quantum fluctuations in human brain patterns. She had been Murphy's assistant for 15 years, but like everyone else in the Human Contingency Department, her real background was classified at levels that even the Federation's spies could not access. Alex, the Sarn fleet has killed 17,000 civilians in the outer colonies, Kate reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the tragedy. Global anger levels are spiking across all human populations. Murphy closed his eyes and felt the familiar burning sensation building in his chest. It was the same feeling he had trained himself to suppress for 30 years, the same rage that every human learned to control from childhood. But now, for the first time in decades, he was going to let it free. "Kate, how long since we ran a full Furious Protocol exercise?" he asked. 18 months, sir. We have been using maximum suppression fields since the Federation made first contact. Every human in space has been under chemical and technological restraint to prevent accidental activation. Murphy opened his eyes and looked at the screens showing human settlements across the solar system. Each dot of light represented thousands of people who had spent their entire lives learning to hold back something that the rest of the galaxy could not imagine. The truth was simple, though it had taken humanity 50 years to understand it fully. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had discovered it in 2157, decades before aliens even knew Earth existed. Her research into human consciousness had revealed something. That changed everything. Human minds did not just observe reality, they could alter it. When humans became truly angry, when they stopped controlling their emotions and let their fury run free, they could rewrite the basic laws of physics around them. Not through technology or special training, but through pure conscious will backed by evolutionary pressure that had made human minds unlike anything else in the galaxy. "Sir," Kate said quietly, "once we disable the suppression systems, there will be no going back. The quantum cascade will spread to every human alive. We will not be able to contain it." Murphy thought about the children who had died in the outer colonies. He thought about the Federation Council laughing at human warnings. He thought about 50 years of his species pretending to be weak when they were actually the most dangerous force in the known universe. "They were warned," he said finally. "Disable all suppression fields. Authorization Murphy 77 Alpha." Kate's finger hovered over the control that would change everything. Confirming authorization. Disabling Furious Protocol restraints in 3, 2, 1. The change was immediate. Across human space, 8 billion minds suddenly felt a barrier lift that had been in place their entire lives. Emotions that had been chemically suppressed and technologically dampened were suddenly free to affect the quantum structure of reality itself. Captain Ben Hayes of the human vessel Defiance had been in space for 12 years. He had undergone monthly psychological evaluations, daily meditation sessions, and weekly injections of mood-stabilizing drugs. All of it was designed to keep him from accessing what his instructors called the old ways. But as he watched the Sarn ships destroying human colonies, as he felt the suppression technology shut down, something woke up in his mind that had been sleeping his entire life. The universe around him suddenly made sense in a way it never had before. "Captain," his navigator Lieutenant Sam Parker called out, wonder filling her voice. "I can see the quantum connections. I can see how space and time fit together." Ben looked down at his hands and watched reality bend around his fingers like water. This was what humanity had been hiding from the galaxy. This was why they had asked everyone not to make them furious. When humans became truly angry, they did not just fight with weapons or technology. They fought by convincing the universe to change its rules. Around him, his crew was experiencing the same awakening. His engineer, Chief Petty Officer Mike Chun, was staring at the ship's reactor readings with confusion. "Captain, our fusion plant just became something else. I am reading energy output. That should require the mass of a star, but we are still running on the same fuel." His weapons officer, Lieutenant Dana Foster, looked up from her console with fear and excitement in her eyes. "Sir, our targeting systems are showing options that should not be possible. I can target the Sarn homeworld from here, 37 light years away, and the computer says it has a firing solution." Ben stood up from his command chair and felt the deck plates beneath his feet respond to his emotions. The metal was becoming stronger, denser, arranged in patterns that would make it nearly indestructible. Open a channel to the Sarn flagship. The communication went through without using any technology. Ben simply decided that Admiral Sarunix needed to hear him, and the universe made it happen. His voice carried across space and time, reaching not just the Sarn fleet, but every ship in the galaxy monitoring the situation. Admiral Sarunix, this is Captain Ben Hayes. You killed our people. You ignored our warnings. Now you will learn what happens when humans stop being nice. Ben closed his eyes and thought about the Sarn homeworld. He had never been there, but suddenly he could see it clearly in his mind. A green and blue planet with 2 moons, home to billions of Sarn civilians who had nothing to do with their military's decision to attack Earth. He could destroy it. The knowledge came to him as easily as remembering his own name. He could reach across 37 light-years of space and simply decide that the Sarn homeworld should stop existing. The universe would obey him because he was furious enough to make it obey. But that was not what humans did. That was not why they had spent 50 years learning to control themselves. Instead, Ben made a different choice. He reached out with his mind and gently picked up the entire Sarn homeworld, all 8 billion tons of rock and metal and life, and moved it. Not destroyed, not harmed, but simply relocated to a new position in space where the Sarn fleet could see it clearly. The planet appeared in Earth's solar system like a new moon, its surface glowing with the reflected light of humanity's sun. Every Sarn on the surface was unharmed, but they could now look up at their sky and see Earth, hanging above them like a blue jewel. Ben opened the communication channel again. His voice now carried harmonics that seemed to make the stars themselves vibrate in response. Admiral, we have moved your homeworld to our solar system. Your people are safe, but they are now our guests. This is a demonstration of restraint. This is us being merciful. He paused, feeling the power flowing through him and his crew and every human in space. If you make us angrier, if you force us to stop being merciful, the next demonstration will be very different. Do you understand? Admiral Sarunix's response came as a whisper across the communication channel. We understand. Ben nodded and settled back into his command chair. Around him, his crew was learning to control powers that could reshape reality itself. Across human space, 8 billion people were experiencing the same awakening. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had spent 50 years asking everyone to please not make them furious. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation began at 0800 hours aboard Nexus Prime, the ancient space station that served as neutral ground for all member species. Ambassador Crixtel arrived first, his forearms trembling as he took his seat in the council chamber. Behind him came General Veximer, whose scales had been stuck on deep purple for 3 days straight, a color that meant fear among the Corthan people. Within 6 hours, representatives from all 300 Federation species had gathered in the massive chamber. The room that had echoed with laughter just months ago when humans asked for membership was now filled with whispered conversations and nervous energy. High Admiral Torvin of the Andromedan Defense Fleet stood at the center podium, her skin shifting through rapid color changes that showed her distress. As the current Federation military commander, she had been tasked with explaining to the Council what had happened in the Sarn system. Honored delegates, she began, her translator working to convert her color speech into audible words. 3 days ago, the Sarn hegemony launched what they called a resource acquisition mission against the human homeworld of Earth. The human response has forced us to completely reevaluate everything we thought we knew about this species. She activated the main display screen, which showed sensor readings from across the galaxy. At 1347 hours, human vessels in the Sol system began showing energy signatures that our instruments cannot fully measure. These readings suggest power outputs equivalent to controlled stellar fusion, but contained within ships no larger than our standard frigates. General Veximer leaned forward in his seat. High Admiral, our intelligence reports indicated that human technology was centuries behind Federation standards. How is this possible? That is what we are trying to understand, General. But the energy readings are just the beginning. Torvan changed the display to show real-time images from the Sarn homeworld. At 14:01 hours, the entire Sarn homeworld was relocated from its original position to orbit around Earth. The planet and all 8 billion inhabitants were moved 37 light-years in an instant, with no apparent harm to the population. The chamber fell silent. Several delegates made religious gestures or spoke prayers in their native languages. The idea of moving an entire planet was beyond anything the Federation had ever imagined possible. How? Ambassador Sylvan of the Andromedan Collective asked, her skin flashing bright yellow with confusion. What technology could accomplish such a feat? That is the problem, Torvan replied. Our analysis suggests this was not accomplished through technology at all. Quantum scans of the relocated planet show no evidence of mechanical transport. The planet appears to have simply been moved by an act of will. Dr. Veltar of the Crystalline Entity Research Institute stood up from his position in the upper rows. His voice came through harmonic resonance that made the air itself vibrate. High Admiral, are you suggesting that humans have developed psychic abilities beyond anything we have recorded? Doctor, we are not sure what to call it, but our readings suggest that human consciousness can directly affect quantum reality at a macro scale. When they experience strong emotions, particularly anger, they appear capable of rewriting the fundamental laws of physics around them. Ambassador Crixtel's forearms moved in patterns that showed disbelief. That is impossible. Consciousness affects quantum particles at the microscopic level, yes. But to affect reality on a planetary scale would require a level of mental development that... He stopped speaking as the implications hit him. Around the chamber, other delegates were reaching the same conclusion. How long have they been hiding? This, General Veximer asked, his scales now flashing between purple and black. Torvan brought up historical records on the display. Our investigation suggests that humans have known about their abilities for at least 50 years. But instead of developing them, they have been actively suppressing them. Every human who has made contact with alien species has undergone extensive training in emotional control and chemical suppression of their natural capabilities. Why would they suppress such power? Asked Prime Minister Galden of the Traders Coalition. Because they were afraid of what they might do with it, came a new voice from the chamber entrance. Every head turned to see a human walking through the doors, without any apparent means of transportation. Director Alex Murphy had simply appeared. In the chamber, space bending around him like water as he moved toward the center platform. Several delegates fainted. Others reached for weapons that would not respond to their commands. Murphy walked calmly to the speaking platform as reality seemed to ripple in his wake. Honored delegates, Murphy said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber without any amplification technology. I am Director Alex Murphy of the Human Contingency Department. I have come to explain what you have witnessed and what it means for the future of galactic civilization. High Admiral Torvan stepped back from the podium, her skin flashing rapid patterns of fear and respect. Director Murphy, how did you arrive here? Our sensors detected no ships, no transport beams, no. I decided I needed to be here, Murphy replied simply. So here I am. This is what happens when humans stop using the suppression technology we have developed over the past 50 years. He gestured, and a holographic display appeared showing the quantum structure of human neural networks. Consciousness affects reality at the quantum level. Most species develop consciousness as a byproduct of intelligence. Humans developed intelligence as a byproduct of consciousness. Every human thought creates ripples in the fabric of spacetime. Ambassador. Crickstell found his voice. But the energy requirements for what we have witnessed would be enormous. How do you generate such power? Murphy smiled sadly. We do not generate it, Ambassador. We are it. Human consciousness is quantum consciousness. When we are calm, when we are controlled, these quantum effects are barely detectable. But when we become truly angry, when we stop restraining ourselves, double cus, well, you have seen the results. General Veximer stood up slowly. You moved an entire planet as a demonstration of restraint? Yes, General. We could have simply decided that the Sarn homeworld should stop existing. The universe would have obeyed us because we were angry enough to make it obey. But that is not who we choose to be. Murphy looked around the chamber. For 50 years, we have asked every species we encountered not to make us furious. We built our entire civilization around the principle that with great power comes great responsibility. Dr. Veltar's harmonic voice filled the chamber. You have been protecting us from yourselves. Yes, Doctor. We have trained our entire population in emotional control. We have developed technology to suppress our natural abilities. We have accepted second-class status in galactic society rather than reveal what we are truly capable of. Murphy's expression grew stern. But when you attacked our civilians, when you ignored our warnings, you forced us to make a choice. Prime Minister Galden leaned forward. What choice was that? Whether to continue protecting the galaxy from ourselves, or to show you why we asked you not to make us furious in the first place. Murphy looked directly at each delegate in turn. We chose to show you. We chose to let you see what happens when humans stop being nice. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Finally, Ambassador Crickstell spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. What do you want from us now? Murphy's smile returned, warm despite the cosmic forces swirling around him. The same thing we have always wanted, Ambassador. Peace, cooperation, a chance to be part of something bigger than ourselves. He paused. But now you understand why we kept asking you not to make us furious. The vote was scheduled for the following day, but nobody in the Federation Council chamber slept that night. Delegates from 300 species sat in their quarters aboard Nexus Prime, staring out at the stars and trying to understand how everything they knew about the universe had changed in a single week. Ambassador Crickstell stood at the window of his diplomatic suite, watching human ships move through space in the distance. The vessels no longer followed normal flight patterns. They drifted between stars like thoughts, appearing and disappearing as their crews decided where they needed to be. Each ship carried humans who had spent their entire lives learning to suppress abilities that could reshape reality itself. General. Veximer had not removed his armor since the emergency session began. His scales remained locked in deep purple, the color of fear that no Korthan warrior should ever display. But he had seen the sensor readings from the Sarn system. He had watched an entire planet move across 37 light-years of space. Because humans had chosen to be merciful instead of destructive. When morning came, the council chamber filled quickly. Every delegate wanted to be present for the most important vote in galactic history. The question was simple. Should humanity be granted immediate membership in the Federation? But everyone understood that the real question was whether the galaxy was prepared to accept that humans had been protecting them all along. High Admiral Torvan called the session to order. Her skin showed steady blue patterns now, the Andromedan color for acceptance of fate. Honored delegates, we gather to vote on the human application for Federation membership. Before we begin, Director Murphy has requested permission to address the Council one final time. Murphy appeared at the center of the chamber without walking there. Space simply folded around him until he stood at the speaking platform. The casual violation of physics made several delegates close their eyes, but nobody laughed this time. Honored delegates, Murphy began. I know you are afraid. You have learned that everything you thought you knew about humans was wrong. You have seen us move planets and bend space to our will. You are wondering what we will do next." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species that had mocked humanity just days before. "I am here to make you a promise. If you accept us into the Federation, we will return to the way things were. We will reactivate our suppression technology. We will train our children to control their emotions. We will go back to being the weak, harmless species you thought we were." Ambassador Sylvan's skin flashed yellow with confusion. "Why would you limit yourselves again? You have shown power beyond anything we possess. You could rule the galaxy if you wished." Murphy smiled sadly. "Ambassador, that is exactly why we will limit ourselves. Power without restraint is not strength. It is madness. We learned that lesson long before we met any of you." Dr. Kate Williams appeared beside Murphy, reality bending to allow her passage. In her hands, she carried a datapad that somehow projected information directly into the minds of every delegate present. "These are the records of what happened when humans first discovered their abilities," Kate explained. Dr. Alana Rodriguez unlocked human quantum consciousness in 2157. Within 6 months, the first conflicts began. Humans who became angry could destroy cities with a thought. Wars that should have taken years were fought in minutes as reality itself became a weapon. The images that filled the delegates' minds showed devastation beyond imagination. Entire continents reshaped by furious thoughts. Oceans moved by grieving minds. The moon itself cracked when a human woman lost her child and her sorrow affected. Gravitational fields across the solar system. "We nearly destroyed ourselves," Murphy continued. "Our planet, our species, everything we had built came close to ending because we did not understand how to control what we were. So we made a choice. We chose to build a civilization based on emotional control. We chose to develop technology that would suppress our abilities rather than enhance them." General Veximer leaned forward. "But why hide this from us? Why not tell the galaxy what you were?" "Because we were afraid you would try to use us as weapons," Kate replied. "We were afraid you would see us as threats to be eliminated or tools, to be controlled. We wanted to be friends, not rulers or slaves." Murphy gestured, and the holographic display showed human colonies across the galaxy. "For 50 years, we have lived among you as equals. We have traded with you, learned from. You shared our culture with you. We have done all of this while constantly suppressing abilities that could have made us the dominant force in the galaxy. And you will continue to suppress these abilities?" asked Prime Minister Galden. "If you accept us as members, yes. We will return to the controlled state we maintained before the Sarn attack, but we will no longer hide the truth from you. You will know what we are, and you will know that we choose every day not to use our full power." The chamber fell silent. Finally, Ambassador Cricksdell stood up. "Director Murphy, what guarantee do we have that humans will maintain this restraint? What happens if your species becomes angry again?" Murphy considered the question carefully. "Ambassador, I cannot guarantee that humans will never become angry again. We are not perfect beings. But I can promise you this. We will maintain our training programs, our suppression technology, and our cultural emphasis on emotional control. And if we ever fail, if we ever let our anger override our judgment again, you will have the right to ask us to leave the galaxy entirely." "You would accept exile if you lost control?" General Veximer asked. "We would accept exile if we became a danger to galactic peace," Murphy confirmed. "That is how serious we are about our responsibility to use our power wisely." "High Admiral." Torvin called for the vote. All delegates in favor of granting immediate full membership to humanity in the Galactic Federation? The vote was unanimous. 300 hands, claws, tentacles, and appendages rose in support. Not because the delegates were no longer afraid of humans, but because they now understood that humans were more afraid of themselves than anyone else could ever be. After the session ended, Jake Morrison and Lisa Carter stood on the observation deck of their ship, watching the Sarn homeworld hanging in Earth's sky like a second moon. The planet would be returned to its original position the following week, but its brief stay had made the point clear to everyone in the galaxy. Do you think they will remember the lesson? Lisa asked. Jake watched human children playing in the parks below, their laughter carrying up through the atmosphere. Each child would grow up learning to control powers that could reshape stars, just as their parents had, just as their grandparents had. They will remember, he said, and hopefully they will teach their children to remember too. The universe learned why we kept asking everyone not to make us furious. Now maybe they will help us make sure no one ever has to learn that lesson again. In the depths of space, human ships began to dim their impossible energy signatures as suppression systems came back online. Across human settlements, 8 billion people returned to the careful emotional control that had become their species' greatest strength. The demonstration was over. The message had been sent. Please don't make us furious. The galaxy finally understood why. Humanity had always been the most dangerous force in the universe. They had also chosen to be the most responsible. That choice, more than any weapon or technology, was what made them truly powerful. And it was what would keep the galaxy safe for generations to come.